Welcome to another simple truth. This past week, Lakeview Community Church, the church and the people that I get to be a part of and get to pastor, just finished a week of Bible school. And we have a church that's pretty small in nature. And on a good Sunday, we have between 30 and 40 people. And for our Sunday school, we probably have between 5 and 7, 8 kids. And so when we throw a Bible school for the community, our expectations are all over the place. We put a ton of time and a ton of energy into promoting and providing for this VBS. But the truth is that when we show up, we're just not sure what's going to happen. You see, there's a ton of variables that come into play, whether it's sports or vacations or whether or not people just agree with who we are and what we're doing and want to entrust their kids to us. And so we started VBS, and we were excited about the opportunity, but a little leery of what our expectations might cause. You see, I speak all the time about expectations and the fact that expectations are what causes us to become disappointed. That's a little tricky to talk about when we're in the Christian realm, because we can expect things from God. God is consistent, and God is, as he says he is, the same yesterday, today, and forever. And so there are things that we can expect. The Bible tells us that there are things we can expect. But as Christians and as people that are going around and living out this Christian walk day to day, disappointment comes when we have expectations of other people. You see, we can expect things from God because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. People are not the same yesterday, today, and forever. We have different levels of consistency. You and I both know people who are very consistent in nature. They seem to never change the way they look. I ran into a guy that I haven't seen in probably 15 years the other day, and he looked at me and said, "You haven't changed a bit." Well, anybody who has watched me has seen that my hair is getting grayer and my belly's getting bigger, and things are changing. But if you haven't seen someone for a while and you look at them and you say, "Wow, your looks, your physical appearance is consistent with the last time I saw you. I could have recognized you anywhere." Some people are consistent in the way they act. They're consistently content or joyful or happy or angry or frustrated or disappointed. And that comes out in everything that they do. You and I, we can recognize those things. But the truth is that most of us, if we really were being truthful, would say that we're pretty inconsistent in nature. That our consistency really depends upon our situation, by our environment, by that which we're experiencing. If we go to work every day and we experience the same things, well, we're going to get the consistency in our character. We're going to get consistency in our actions. We're not surprised. We know what's going to happen. But if we were to go to a job where every day things could be different, every day we really didn't know what was going to happen. Imagine if we lived today with the expectations that it was going to be the same as yesterday, and it isn't. Imagine the disappointment or the excitement with how it changes day to day. All of that to say this, that the only way truly that you and I can be disappointed in life is if we have expectations. If we have expectations that people are going to act consistently, that situations are going to consistently be put in front of us, that we're going to handle them the same way time after time after time. One of the things about going to college is that they teach you the ideals, the way that things should be in a perfect world, in a perfect setting. But sooner or later, you experience the fact that those ideals don't match up with the reality of what's going on. And there's no way that we can be consistent on a day-to-day basis when the things around us are consistently changing. So one of the problems in life as a Christian. One of the problems is life as a Christian in community. When we're trying to do this thing called church, is expectations. The fact that you and I walk in every Sunday with a list of expectations for the service, for those leading the service, for those surrounding us in the service. We have expectations for our children's teachers. We have expectations for anything that we go to, that it's going to be something that we want. And that sets up for disappointment. You see, the second someone or something, a situation, isn't what I expect it to be, then I get disappointed. A few weeks ago, I shared with you that where your focus is where your attitude and your actions are going to be. You know, we've all experienced disappointment, and what happens in that disappointment? The fact that our attitude changes the second we're disappointed, that our actions then follow that attitude. I see it time and time again in my own life. I've experienced it as I've encountered other people and as they've encountered me. That when I don't meet their expectations, when I've disappointed them in some way, shape, or form, an attitude forms and actions come right after that. I think it's amazing the amount of times that we're praising people at one moment and tearing them down at another. You know, the idea that we love those in leadership and authority over us today, when we get our Christmas bonus, or when they give us extra time off, or when they, recognize us for some type of appreciation. But when they discipline us, when they don't do what we want them to do, or how we want them to do it, well, then we're disappointed. Listen, the real damage in any corporate setting, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a church, whether it's a workplace, whether it's a family, anytime that there are more than one person together, two or more are gathered, expectations are going to bring about disappointment. And my question is, what happens when you get disappointed? What type of a disappointed person are you? Does disappointment serve as the key to unlock the attitudes and the actions that you have stored away? Do you find yourself lashing out when you get disappointed, angry, frustrated? What happens when you get disappointed? No doubt about it, Jesus had to have walked this earth for the 3 years of his ministry and been disappointed with what he saw, with what he encountered, with who he encountered. Yet it did not deter him from what God had for him. He kept doing right things, being in right places, accomplishing the things that God wanted him to accomplish. Why? Because Jesus didn't live a life of expecting us to be perfect. He anticipates what we can do with the Holy Spirit. You see, there's a big difference between expectation and anticipation. When you go to church and you expect, well, then you're going to get disappointed if it doesn't meet your expectations. If you go to church and you're anticipating what God is going to do, well, then your eyes, your mind, your heart, it's wide open, ready for whatever it is that God is going to do. And it might not be in your life. It might be in the person sitting next to you. It might be in the person sitting in front of you. You see, anticipation opens up our hearts and our minds and gets us ready for what God will have for us and does have for us and might have for us. We're allowed to express our opinions. We're allowed to tell God what we would like. And then we anticipate him meeting that need. There's nothing more damaging to your Christian walk than expecting that God's going to do something the way that you want him to do it, when you want him to do it, where you want it done. Many a person has walked away from Christ, walked away from the Christian faith, because they've been disappointed, because they had expectations rather than anticipation. Listen, I could talk about this issue for hours and hours and hours. I've seen it in my own life, been disappointed many, many times if I expected people to be who I wanted them to be and do what I wanted them to do. I find that if I go to church, I present the gospel, and I anticipate what God is going to do with that, that it's really hard to be disappointed with God. Are you expecting God to work in your life today? Or are you anticipating how God is going to work? Listen, as I said from the beginning, you can expect that God is going to work in your life because he says he's going to. But when you start setting the parameters and putting him in a box, that's going to bring about disappointment. But if you woke up every morning anticipating what God was going to do in you, for you, and ultimately through you, imagine the difference in your life. Simple truth. Walk through life anticipating what God is going to do, rather than expecting him to do what you want him to do.